You are listening to the Barry Long audio, The Luciferic Legacy, Session 5 of 12, from his 9-day event on the Gold Coast, March 2000. For more information, visit barrylong.org.
I apologise for the late start, but the later you start, the more difficult it is to get here on time, isn't it? And a number of people apparently were running a little late. You are deep enough now, in the 3 days that we have been together, for me to tell you something probably that's never been uttered on the earth before, because I'm always doing that. But it's very difficult to hold on to, because it's so close to the reality that we live in here. And anything that's so close to you that it is you is very difficult to see. I'm going to tell you the Luciferic legacy. Luciferic legacy. First, I'll tell you the myth of Lucifer, as I know it, and the way I know it is what the myth is. And then I'm going to apply that to its effect on earth. Lucifer, as you probably know, was an angel, the angel closest to God, the reality in the other. A shining light. Even the morning and evening star, which is Venus, is referred to as the Luciferic light. It's such a beautiful star. And so Lucifer, being the archangel and next to God, the reality in the other, was a very, very extremely beautiful being. But Lucifer was arrogant, and because he had so much power, being so close to the reality, the Most High, to God, he thought that he was stronger, was more powerful than God, and revolted against God's rule. The result of that was that Lucifer was condemned to fall from his very high position, well, his top position. So Lucifer fell. What is it to fall? What is it to fall from the grace of God? What is it? Lucifer fell into existence, into sense, into matter. And that's why it is said that this world, this matter, this existence is Lucifer's existence. And I will endeavour to show you what that means. No good taking any notice of the Christian version and interpretation of this myth. Christians will always mislead you because they have no real knowledge. So here we have Lucifer having fallen, a fallen angel, fallen into sense, into matter, into existence. That means that you and I, and all of us, are fallen angels. Because what has been in, originally, everything else must follow. So you and I have fallen or descended into matter. We have all descended out of God, out of the reality, out of the other, into matter. You and I are fallen angels. For we must follow the Luciferic legacy. Now, Lucifer's, apart from his arrogance, Lucifer, in rebelling against God, the reality, rebelled against love. For God is love. God is also truth, but where we're talking about it, God is love. And so to rebel against God is to rebel against love. Now let's start to look at the Luciferic legacy on earth. Sex without love is a Luciferic action, a devilish action. Of course, Lucifer is the devil. What is this devil? Give me a word for it, Barry. What is the devil? I know the Christians have got all sorts of names for the devil and everyone else. No one believes, of course, that there's a devil. But I'm going to tell you what the devil is. The devil is sex without love. Do you need me to explain it to you, or have you ever had enough of it? That it is devilish. It ruins the life of every woman who has ever comes into existence. Her life will be ruined in the sense that she will be polluted and scarred and mauled by sexual man, by a reflection or a bit of the Luciferic devil that is in man's sexuality. You see, myth is the truth. But you can't talk to scientists, you couldn't talk to anyone in this university about myth that I'm talking about, because they all know that myth's not true. Myth is truer than true. A myth is truth, original truth. And so the devil is here. And the only devil in existence is sex without love, which is, of course, a rebellion against God, because God is love. And woman comes into the world, as I was saying yesterday. The young girl comes in from a place where everything is together. There is no bodies there. There's no bodies, no separation. Everything is wonderfully together. And a young girl comes in, and what is she looking for here? What does she naturally expect to find in this world? She expects to find an affirmation, a confirmation of the love that she just left. But unfortunately, she has entered a fallen world, a world that is a rebellion against God due to the Luciferic drive. And so, although she comes in, all I want to do is to be loved. I just want man to love me. Every woman's desire who's ever born. And what happens to her? Yes, disappointment, heartbreak, problematic scars in her that stay with her until one day someone may or may not, some man who is not in revolt against God or love, may be able to heal her. But the chances are not great out there. Now, how deeply does this devilish, Luciferic legacy go? Well, its name being sex without love. What happens to sex without love? In you and in me, what happens? What's its effect of sex without love? Now, I have always asked you to be present and to check everything I'm saying in your own experience. For this is your experience, this is your world. I'm not lecturing you. I'm only telling you what you already know. But because we're a bit afraid of facing the truth, sometimes we want to look away and go, oh, but, and propose options and alternatives. And there's no alternative to what I'm saying if you will only apply it to your own experience of life on this planet, this fallen angel planet. Because you've got to be vast to be spiritual, you see. You've got to be vast enough. You can't just narrow it into your little bedroom and your little house and your little children and your little mother and father. You can't just do that. You've got to get vast enough to see behind the curtain. You've got to be vast enough to be able to perceive the other. To perceive the other, which is behind this and yet has no attributes whatever except it is good, it is beautiful, it is sweet, it is right, it is true. All those attributes add up to one word: good, beautiful. No negativity in the other, none. All negativity is here. And why is it here? Why is this the world of negativity? As well as the world of love, of course. There is some love here. Because you're all angels. An angel is composed of complete and utter love. It's just that you've fallen into existence. You've fallen into matter. You've fallen into sex. You came out of sex. Your body came out of sex. And it doesn't matter whether the mother and father loved each other or hated each other. The Luciferic legacy continues to work in that everybody's having babies. Because for this world to continue, there must be a replacement of those who die to keep it going. And that's the Luciferic legacy. This world of lack of love must be kept going. And it's kept going by sex. And so two bodies just don't have to love each other. How many young women do I hear about? 15, 14, with a man, and they're suddenly pregnant. There was no love there. There was just the first blush, probably, of excitement, sexual excitement, and a seeming confirmation of the love that they came in for. But they get pregnant. There was no choice in it. It's just the Luciferic legacy is to repopulate this earth so that everybody can suffer and the devilish energy can have its way. It is an intelligence. Are you with me? Sex without love, the Luciferic, the devilish energy, is an intelligence. It's not foolish, it's cunning. Please look at this in your own experience. It is cunning. It is a liar. It's always a liar. It's got to lie its way and pretend to be something that it's not, to get its way, to get its own selfish satisfaction, passing satisfaction, and then pass on to the other, whether it be man or woman. Now, are you getting the vast picture, please? I don't want you just to narrow it down like the silly Christians have done. All the Christians have the Luciferic energy in them, and they're fighting the devil. And they don't know what the devil is. And it's their own sexuality. And I've got papers from Ireland, which some people have sent me, of great saints over there, living saints that are there today, who haven't eaten or something for 20 years. You know the usual bullshit stories. They haven't eaten for 20 years except the Eucharist, which is to take a bit of a biscuit into their mouth and pretend it's Christ's body or someone. And all that rubbish, which is self-delusion and self-hypnosis. And one of the simple things about these sort of people, these Catholic people, who are so much in Jesus, that they have to fight with the devil. And sometimes they've got to be tied down because they smash the furniture, or they might hurt themselves. So the monsignors and all the guardians, the stupid old pretentious bishops or whatever they are, who don't know anything, like the Pope, doesn't know anything about God at all, only as a man of good intention, but good intentions don't make God realization. So what happens to these saints, these living saints? They have to face the sex in them, the devil in them, all right, but they don't say it's their sex, do they? Oh no, it's always the devil. Give him another name. Don't say it's me, for God's sake. It's the devil, which is always outside of me, but comes into me, and I've got to fight and hold on to Jesus to fight my own sexuality. Well, the Buddha had the same trouble, didn't he, that I described yesterday. He sat there under the thing, and what did he have to face? Mara, which is the sexual temptress, because the Luciferic energy appears as a beautiful man or a beautiful woman or anything. But it's always a liar. It's never what it is. And so the great Buddha himself had to face it and not give in to it. But he didn't fight with it. He didn't throw himself around and smash the furniture as he fought the battle of Christ against the devil. He simply saw it was sex. And he stayed aloof from it, and he contained it despite its tremendous endeavour to seduce him away from the reality of stillness and silence. And of course he went through it, which you can do with sex. You can go through it if you will only not give in to it, if you serve love first or truth first. Now, is it real? You've had sex in you. No good saying you haven't had the devil in you. Any of us, we've all had the devil in us, because this is a devilish place of cruelty, violence, sexual abuse, drinking, alcohol, smoking, drugs. All of it is a part of the Luciferic legacy. Let me show you. The person who takes drugs is, first of all, in the first instance, we can say, because of our stupidity and lack of any parent loving us enough, or any of the society being real enough, the teenager wants to experiment with everything, which is part of the Luciferic legacy. You must experiment. Now, come on, you must experiment. You must experiment. You must try it out, because you are invulnerable, aren't you? When you're a youth, you're invulnerable. Nothing can hurt you, nothing can touch you, because you're so strong and vital. But the Luciferic energy has a special way of getting you and your children. And it's called, for a simple word, bad company. Every woman, every drug addict has been in bad company. The Luciferic legacy is bad company. Come on, try this. It's great fun. Oh, really great fun. Come on. The temptation, you see, of sex. The temptation, because those who have fallen deepest into greed or into addiction want to bring everyone deeper and deeper into existence, into profanity, into desperation. to be with them so that they can share what they've got, their Luciferic knowledge, which is desperation, despair, unhappiness. So all bad company wants to share its badness, and by God it got you, and it will get you, and it'll get your children. Do you think I'm making this up? That's what you've got to watch with your children, but you can't do anything about it, really, because the whole thing is a mess of bad company. It's so exciting, bad company, for the invulnerable, the everlasting youth. I'll get by. Nobody else has got by, but I will. Yeah, like hell. So why drugs and alcohol? Why do we go and have a few drinks after a hard day at the office? Because first of all, we shouldn't have had a hard day at the office. Always come back to the beginning. You should never have a hard day at the office. Unless you've been digging trenches 12 feet deep with a shovel and then filling them in again, you haven't had a hard day. So none of you have had a hard day in your life. So why do you need a drink when you come home? Because you need some relief, something, a bit of the false spirit to give you a bit of a lift, so that you can get rid of some of the tensions that you have inflicted on yourself by identifying with the job as the most important thing on your life, whereas God is the most important thing, love is the most important thing, life is the most important thing in life. And you get suckered into your identification with your job. And if you don't, you get suckered into your identification with the dole, and you say you can't get a job. But the only thing is you're pretty choosy about what the jobs you'll take. Have you noticed? That you must do as you do, but the only thing is for you to see this whole thing. Now, frustration. There is only sexual frustration. Well, first of all, why do people take drugs? They take drugs because they're looking for love. They're looking for something, some secret remedy that will give them love. And when you take drugs or you take alcohol, not in the beginning, of course, because you don't get the zing immediately. You only get the zing when you're attached to it. Boom. And it becomes a love, and you've got to have it. And when you have it, this love, this addictive love, it's such a relief to have it. Oh, the whole world smiles again because you've got some replica, some phantom love, some phantom relief, all made by the Luciferic legacy of greed of the peddler, of greed of the society, of all the booze shops everywhere, drive-in booze shops, and there's the police out getting you to breathalyze and all that, and they're all trying to stop the drunks and the drunk driving and the mayhem on the road, and they're selling the booze everywhere and advertising it, and everyone can get it. What a society! Where does that come from? Where does this temptation come from? Where does this devilish energy come from that makes you alcoholic or think that you need alcohol? From the Luciferic legacy that wants to bring you down, because when you have addicted to alcohol, you cannot love. Or if you're addicted to drugs, if any of you women go with a man who's addicted to alcohol or drugs, then you are a fool, because he has a greater love than a love of you. So that deals with that addiction, the search for love which you never got, and yet when you get it, it hooks you because it's devilish. And the devil hooks you, but God the good doesn't hook you. You just love it. Now let's get this word frustration. There is only sexual frustration. There is no other frustration on this earth but sexual frustration. If we could only face that, we would be facing the devil. But we're frightened to face the devil, aren't we, which is in us? Because if you get frustrated in anything, you are sexually frustrated. Meaning, You don't have enough love in your life, and you are responsible for not having enough love in your life. Nobody else is. If you get frustrated, you are devilish. And the children will learn from you what frustration is. Because you're bad company. Because frustration makes you angry. And anger comes from the sexual drive to get what you want. The greed of sex to get what you want. Power over another. The person you're angry with, power over them instead of power over your own self, your stinking self. Your stinking, sexually frustrated, unloving self. That's where you've got to get the power over, not the power over someone else. Now, where does this lead in the world? Why do all the nations go to war? All the nations go to war because all the politicians are sexually frustrated. And all the people in the nation are sexually frustrated. And that makes the people angry and subject to any cause that could express their anger in weapons, in killing people, in doing this and invading people. And it doesn't matter who's the goodies and who's the baddies. They're all bad. Because even the winners never solve the Luciferic legacy. And the greed. Where does the greed come from? I've got what I've got and nobody else is going to get it. This is my sexual satisfaction, is a comfortable life. And of course, if I've got everything, then you can't have it. And so it leads to the whole stinking society that we've got and the whole stinking lot of politicians who can go into politics with all the best of intentions, but they're sexually frustrated, so they will have to compromise, won't they? They'll have to compromise with this and that, and before they know where they are, they have sold their souls to compromise. And the devil is a compromise. Devilish. It does not pay to compromise with yourself. You must compromise with our society the way it is. You must compromise in the external world, given that it does not pay to compromise with yourself. Are you listening to me? Am I making any impression? Am I really penetrating? Are you truly seeing what this existence is about? That you're doomed. But you're not, of course, because fortunately you're going to die. That will end it all. But if you can only find love in the midst of the sexual movement, the natural sexual movement, if you can only, instead of putting greed and self first in the sexual movement, if you can only come to love, because love is here. Love is God. And God is always here. No matter in this lost Luciferic world. There is the saving grace. There is the integrity of love of God. But man and woman have chosen, for the most part, the Luciferic way. You don't give enough time to God. So how can you get God? You give more time to the Luciferic world. You give more time to burying yourself in your job and losing yourself instead of pausing to say, I love it, I love it, I love it. To go into the toilet anywhere, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love you, I thank you, I thank you. Well, what are you thanking that? What are you thanking? Who are you thanking? I don't know who I'm thanking, and it doesn't matter because I know I am grateful to this. What's that? This that doesn't exist, this that I know is good and beautiful and right and true. How often do you do that, in your busy, computerized existence? How often do you pause and go into the toilet and get on with it? Or pause in front of your computer and detach from it and give your gratitude to that which you do not understand, which is absolutely incomprehensible. Because only the Luciferic origin is legacy is comprehensible, understandable. That's understandable. Well, if sex is in you instead of love, and of course sex is in everybody. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with sex. It's the greed of sex. The greed of sex, to have sex without love. So where do all the motor cars come from? It comes from sexual frustration. Having to make something, instead of making something of me, I make something of objects outside of me. And why do you need a motor car? Why do I need a motor car? Because it's more comfortable and convenient, and because it is likely to distract me from anything that would return me to God. While I identify with motor cars or anything, the thing is I can have anything. I can have motor cars, I can have houses, I can have anything, as long as God is first. That's the law here. If I put God and truth and love first, it matters not. Everything's fine. But how many really do that? How many of you really do that in your busy day? I know you're all spiritually inclined and spiritually intended. I know that. I'm not deprecating that. I'm not. But I am saying how much of that your life is that when you get into your favourite activities, when you lose yourself, and especially when you get frustrated. From now on, you'll know you're sexually frustrated. Because you're not giving enough. You see, the only way to get rid of this Luciferic devil that's in all of us is to start giving. Not enjoying yourself, but to start giving. Every moment, either is a state within of thanks and gratitude to that which you cannot name, which brought you here, because you wouldn't be here unless you loved something, would you? You're not here because you love your husband or your children or your woman. You're not here because you love your woman. Could we get that straight? I mean, is anyone going to tell me you're here because you love your woman? Then I'll tell you to go home. Don't come here. You're here because you love something you cannot name. That's why you're here. That's what brought you. Oh, I know you had to make the arrangements and find out the finances and all that. You're just the movement of it. It's the love that brought you here. It's the truth that brought you here. That's what you love. It's a God that brought you here. That's what you love. Or you can call it it. I love it. Well, what's wrong with that? I love it. As long as you don't try to objectify it, to give it an object, to give it any sort of name that has any association whatever with anything in this Luciferic existence. So call it it. But do you see that something brought you here, that you love something greater than your children, greater than your job, greater than anything, greater than your money? And that's why you were brought here, so you could demonstrate, I love something that cannot be named. Could you possibly see that, please? Because that is a mighty bit of self-knowledge. That takes the arrogance out of you. That you love something that cannot be named, that the whole world can name everything they love, but you cannot. That's giving in the first instance. A giving of my love to that which is no object, to that which I do not own, like my children, my house, my lover. The giving to something that I do not understand nor need to understand at all. It's just there, and that's why I love it. because it never changes, never varies, like everything else in the Luciferic world, changes, passes away, moves on. But this never moves. Now have you got it? You love it. So could we get that straight to start with? That you have inside of you the fire of it. That is the fire of God. That is the saving grace. Instead of thinking that you just came here because you had the money or could get the time off, could you see what the truth is behind it? You love it. And I love it. Or I wouldn't be up here. Now, anything you want to name is part of the Luciferic fallen angel legacy. Anything. The drugs, AIDS, the Luciferic energy of mistaking that you can love man for man physically. You can love man for man. There's no doubt about that. You can love man, man to man. But you cannot physically love each other, and nor can woman to woman. But you can have a go at it. That's the Luciferic energy, which brings frustration because it can't be done, you see. You only think it can be done. You imagine it can be done. So it brings imagination, an enormous amount of imagination, because it can't be done. And where something can't be done, you have to use imagination. And that makes you frustrated, because it's not real. And then that works out in your life as some sort of disharmony within you. So there is nothing in this world that is not due to the Luciferic identification, sex. Nothing. The teenager who knows everything but knows nothing. Knows everything in youth because the sexual energy has started to enter some years ago and started to come up, and the sexual entity is not of your body. Your sexual energy is an entity from the psychic world. And it's here everywhere, in every body that's born, because everybody has fallen into this matter, this sexual jungle. So everyone is possessed more or less by the devil. Sex. Don't let's glamorize it, the devil sounds so awful, doesn't it? But how about sex pretty awful without love? So the teenager gets the feeling of sex, which is invulnerable when you're young. And it knows everything because it's so cunning, you see. It can drive all these little bodies. What happens? People are driven by the sexual energy. Now, you have a look at this in your own experience, please, just to see if I'm saying what's true. The sexual energy is in charge. You are not in charge. When the sexual energy is driving you, you are not in charge. The energy is. That is why. And men and women have always prepared to lose everything they treasure. Children, wives, homes, fortunes. Because of the sexual drive. Because the energy wants gratification. Not you, the energy. And so men and women wager, or even just say it doesn't matter. Because they think they're the sexual energy, and that's the mistake of this silly, stupid society. The sexual energy is such a powerful energy that it drives your whole life and manipulates you in every way it possibly can, and will continue to do so, even in your choice of jobs, to make you suffer. You see, the devilish energy wants you to suffer. It wants to ruin your life. It's the spoiler. You've heard me speak often enough of the spoiler. Well, what's the spoiler? It is sexual drive without love. So it's going to ruin your life. Whatever you do, whatever direction you go in, it is going to take over and ruin your life while it can possess you. Now, there is nothing. Sex is natural. Sex is natural because you and I are animals. And sex is natural to all animals, sex being the need to reproduce. And one of the errors of the human society is to forget that each one of us is an animal. That's a great arrogance to forget that we're an animal, that we're above the animals. Well, all you've got to do is get the knife and slice it here and see if it bleeds like a bloody animal. And you'll find it does. Then it suffers like the animal suffers, only the animal is instinctive, and that's its purity. And you are not instinctive. Only half of you is instinctive, and that part of you hardly know exists. Because you and I are self-conscious. You and I are not instinctive as a whole. We are mostly self-conscious. That means we are conscious of ourself. And ourself is the spoiler. And we are conscious all self-consideration. That's what we're always considering. What about me? What about me? That's what self-consciousness means. Self-interest. And so all greed comes out of self-interest, which is devilish. You're an animal like I am. I should never forget that if I were you. Because then you will be arrogant like the professors and everybody up there studying. They forget they're animals, and all animals die. All bodies die. And you forget about that you're going to die, that you're doomed, no matter what you do and what fancy clothes and gowns you put on. It does not matter because you're doomed. Because you've fallen into a devilish existence. First of all, you have to see the fact of where you are and stop making optimistic noises. Because you can't be optimistic in this existence. It's going to get you with pain, disharmony, unhappiness, and everyone you love is going to die and suffer. So stop making optimistic noises. But humanity loves to be optimistic. Oh, wait until you're there and you've got the pains and you're taking the morphine and you're in the dreadful state, in the physical animal, because that's what dies. And then tell me how optimistic you are. But there is this wonderful part of us which is the spark of God, the spark of love, the spark of life in us, because we are fallen angels. And it is possible to go back home, which of course is the mystics have always spoken about, mystic being someone who loves God. To go home, to get out of this terrible, terrible existence in which everything dies and everything is greed and corruption. Wherever you go, every institution is corrupt because man and woman are sex without lovers in them, and so it corrupts everything. Now, I trust you've got the whole picture of your existence. But the way out is love. And the way out, first of all, is to love it that brought you here, that made you come here. That's the first thing. And the second thing is not to get identified with your busy, busy life. Because part of the Luciferic energy is to keep you busy, trying to catch up, trying to get enough money, trying to get enough of this, trying to get enough of that, and you can never, ever get enough. Never. Because when you get enough of that, it comes up in somewhere other way, over here, and you've got to go and get some of that. So the whole thing is a hopeless, chaotic mess. And if you haven't seen that yet, well, life will come and show you what I am saying. Except that there is love. And I can get through on love. And I can get out on love while I exist in this existence. But I have to start giving. Not giving when it pleases me, but giving. What is it to give? Well, this morning we started at 11 o'clock, and I asked you for that hour to give some time to focusing on the pure sensation in your body with your pure intelligence, the two rarest things on earth, because they're seldom realized. I asked you to give time to that. That's a giving, you see. But what did you do this morning with the extra time? What did you do with it? You get on with your busy, busy life. That's a giving to the thing that brought you here, it. Now you can live your life, you can be as busy as you like, as long as you interrupt it. The busier you are, the more you've got to interrupt it every 10 minutes with gratitude and thanks and giving. And giving as much as you can to the people around you in the sense of you're giving out of your own nature, which is not contaminated by reservation. Reservation. Holding back for some reason or other because of your shame. Your sexual shame makes you unable to, makes you reserved, makes you judgmental. There's a sexual shame. Because you've got so many secrets, haven't you? I know how many secrets you've got. I know you've got lots of secrets. Well, that's your sexual shame that keeps your secrets there. Do you hear me? You've got secrets that nobody on earth has ever known about you. You got them, and you did it, and you thought it. But nobody knows, do they? So you've got a cunning entity down there called yourself, which keeps secrets and reservations, and therefore is judgmental, all sexual. And then we have the husband and the happy marriage, or the happy coming together. And the two people come together and they're in love. But what it is, they're not in love. It is the two bodies made by God. The two bodies made by God. They are pure and beautiful because they're made by God. They're not made by man and woman. They're not manufactured like motor cars, like emotion and unhappiness. They're just made by God. Beautiful little animal bodies. Wonderful little things. Extraordinary invention, you could say. Extraordinary creation is your little body. It is amazing, and my little body is such an amazing creation. Not made by man or woman, though. Amazing creation. Do you see that? Or do you look in the mirror how pretty you are? Or how good looking you are, how well dressed you are? Do you ever really know how beautiful your little body is? It doesn't matter if it's fat or it's thin or it's got lines or anything. It is a magnificent little vehicle. And the thing is it filled with frustration and wishing and wanting, which are all sexual aberrations? Or are you appreciative of now? Are you absent? Are you innocent? Are you pure of heart yet? Well, why not? Because you've got secrets. You hold on to yourself, your entity. And you're a liar and you're a phony, right? Okay, that's all right. Everybody's a liar and a phony because they've got secrets. But that's all right. The thing is, do you love it? Do you give? In the sense of being grateful in your busy, busy life? Or do you lose your gratitude in your busyness, which achieves nothing whatever? Nothing. You only think it does. Now everybody has the Luciferic possession, more or less. Everybody is more or less possessed by sex, the sexual entity, the devil. Some are more possessed than others. Some with their sexual possession, because Lucifer is very cunning, having been a fallen angel and being behind the scenes in the psychic, knows what's going to happen and knows what has happened, which our silly little minds have very little knowledge of. And when the possession becomes very intense in a man, and it's usually in a man, he then manipulates men and women for his sexual gratification. Until sooner or later, it is possible that a man can be totally possessed by the Luciferic energy. I have met such a man, but I have only met such a man in one body. I have never met in all the thousands of men I have been with in the spiritual life. I have never met another totally and utterly possessed by this Luciferic energy. So you see, I know what I'm talking about, because I've even found or been led to that which is it in human form. But it's all right. The body will die, and it will endeavour to possess someone else, because it's got a whole 6 billion people to possess, and continue to create this hopeless world that is hopeless without love. Okay then, so that's that. I trust you have heard me. Now, would someone like to ask me a question just to show me that I've said something that you've really received, that you applied in your own experience? Or if you ask me a question, please come from your own experience, would you? And not from what you've heard or some religious rubbish. Would you like to ask me a question? Yes, Paul? Thank you, Lena.
Barry, I would like to...
I think it's on.
It's on, all right. Barry, I'd like to ask a question about daydreaming, because I see that I still have a lot of daydreaming. I've been daydreaming since I was a child, because I was very unhappy in this very nuts and bolts world, materialistic world. And it has improved much over the years, but I'm still daydreaming, and it is like a psychic disturbance. And it seems like it relates to what you have been talking about this morning.
Well, everything comes from sexual denial, which is denial of love. Yeah. Everything comes from that. Yeah, right. But daydreaming. Now, daydreaming is a bit like thinking. imagining in an endeavour as a childhood thing to compensate for all the difficulties that a child has to face. And of course we carry that on, it becomes habitual, and you carry that on into your adult life. But you can't be present while you're daydreaming. Now, you're not daydreaming now, are you?
Well, I'm not daydreaming now, but it creeps in even while I'm here with you. I mean, not when I'm sitting in the first row, but sometimes during the sessions even it creeps in. And while I'm being here at this place for this week.
It only means that you're not really here, Paul. It only means that you've lost the dynamic of being here. You've given into the need to escape. Now, what's wrong with your life, Paul? Are you eating too much?
Well, that's one thing.
Okay, well, why don't you start there? How about that? First off, right? You come, you ask me a question, I give you an answer. Are you eating too much? And the answer is yes. Okay, start there. Because this energy will find some self-indulgence to perpetuate itself in the body. And we have to look for what we are doing that we know not to be right for us, only for us, and you've got to start somewhere. Yes. Okay? So stop enjoying your food so much and know what you're doing. I am not eating this because I know what I am doing. Now, when you know what you're doing, you can't be daydreaming, can you?
That's right.
So that catches on, you see. But you've got to be there and you've got to overcome. It's like an addiction. An addiction to food is a sure example of lack of love. Sure. And women go through it, and they're snacking all day, and that's because of lack of love and all those things. And men too. Men just overeat. They don't snack all day as much as women, I don't think, but they just overeat. Well, I think you've got to start there, Paul. You ask me advice and I give it to you.
Thank you very much.
Good, okay. You've always got to start somewhere. And we all want to be like Jesus and get on the cross and have the big sacrifice, don't we? But that's not the way it's done. That will be asked of you by God. This one is what your own self-knowledge is, where you are indulging yourself and where it can hide in some addiction or overindulgence. Mm-hmm. Okay, Paul, start there.
Thank you very much, Barry.
Good. Yes, would you hand this... here, hand it back. Here comes Lena. Please. Thank you. Thank you, Lena.
Hello, Barry.
Yes, name, please.
My name is Joachim. I'm from
Yes,
Germany.
I spoke to you yesterday. Good.
And some weeks ago I had an experience that was quite disturbing, and that's why I'm here to ask you about it. Around my solar plexus, kind of an energy, a very strong energy that appeared at once and kept on being there for weeks and gave me a lot of power in my life, in my work. But I also had the impression of being a bit disturbing and related to what you said today. I didn't know, is it a good or a bad power or a kind of possession, and that was disturbing about it.
No, it's not a possession. It has the good in it, in that you can use that power to be grateful to God more, to be grateful for your life, and to focus on using your pure intelligence to do something worthwhile with it. Don't worry about your job. That's a secondary thing if it helps you there or anywhere else. First thing first is to give gratitude to God, to focus on what is real in your body. That's what it's there for. But if you don't do that and you put where it focuses on your job first, then you get a reaction from yourself, which then gets satisfaction out of it, and it's lost its real power. You must give power to God. You must not give it to yourself. Right? First to God. First thing first. Now, God, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes.
It that brought you here, it that you love, right?
Yes.
It that you can't describe. You must give power to that. Otherwise, man gets inflated like Hitler and all the rest of the people and all the arrogant ones that want power over men and women and power over nations. And they... Well, I've heard it said somewhere, give unto God those things that are God's, and give unto the world those things that are the world's. Well, the world is your job and all that, but give unto God first. If you get power in your body, you know, if I took anything from God in my teaching, because I'm always saying I know everything, don't I? I know everything. I'm realized of love and God and life and truth. That could be an extraordinary arrogance, but I am not arrogant because every moment I give to God where it comes from. I give back all the time. I never say a word here that is not giving back to God. Or I would be arrogant, and I couldn't stand it to be arrogant. Therefore, I would be in revolt against God, and I would fall in a mess on the floor, literally, as it were, metaphorically. So I give everything back. And when I give everything back to God, somehow or other, I am given the strength to keep going until I can't. Now, that's what you've got to do with every bit of power. Okay? Otherwise, it'll get corrupted by the Luciferic energy yourself. That's all. No, don't doubt it. If it's good, then be grateful for it. That's how you tell. If it's self-satisfaction, you can't really give gratitude for it. Somehow or other, self-satisfaction is something that just gets carried away by itself. Whereas if it's good, it's really good that comes to you. Thank you, thank you. And stay in it. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Right? That's giving. Okay, thank you. All right then, that's I'm sorry we haven't got time today to go any further. We had a late start so that you could do some real work without me. I trust you did. And now it's time to break so that you can get over for lunch. And so, Kate, what's the next? We start again at 2:30, right? Now, I trust I have opened up your perception of this existence. Not just your life, not just the person next to you, not just your mother and father, but the entire life of this existence on this poor planet, and which sex and greed is apparently destroying as fast as it possibly can. Because sex and greed destroys everything, like it destroys bodies, like it destroys people, like it destroys trees. It destroys everything by greed, because sex is greed. And the whole corporate greed, which has now taken us over more and more, is because of the sexual drive of sexual men and women who have been made sexual by sexual men. And woman has been made more and more sexual because she has given into sexual man and indulged him. He has turned her into 25% man, 50% man, 75% man, and 100% man has he turned her into. And not the particular body that she's necessarily in now, but in the successions of bodies that come through here. That's what has happened to woman. And she has to now find the way back to what she is, which is total, utter and complete love. 100% love. Whereas man, as you know, that I have been saying for years, is 10%, 90% love and 10% what? I say 10% activity and drive. But really it is 10% testosteronic drive, sexual drive. That's all man is. He built the world with his testosteronic drive, his sexual drive, and he's still building the world with it, and he's into the corporations. It's not him, of course. It is a sexual drive that's into everything. And it's in our bodies, and the only way we've got to do is draw the line. Draw the line and say, no, I'm going to give, and I love, and the only thing you can give to is God and truth, and who give out an innocence and an undemanding nature. So that's the finale of this morning. I thank you all for being with me, and I trust we've done some good work. Thank you all.